Hello and welcome to the next video. So today we're going to be installing the burners and the jacket on the boiler as well as the gas valve. So first what you can see there is I just put the burner tray in place, and this is what actually holds all the burners. And you'll see in a little while when I move it out of the way to get the bolt studs in place. There's a row of little black, what are called orifices on that black bar on the front, and what those do is fire a little jet of gas down the burners, and the size of the hole in those orifices is very precisely set depending on the altitude you're at and the BTU rating of the boiler. So that orifice will fire a jet of gas down the burner tube, and that fast-moving jet will create an area of low pressure at the mouth of the burner that will then suck air in with it, and it will mix to the correct proportion of air and oxygen and fuel to create the correct burn. So getting that mixture set correctly is a matter of changing the manifold pressure on that burner, and I'll go through that process when we actually fire it up down the line. But for now, I just wanted to explain to you what I'm doing and kind of guide you guys through the process. So once I get this bolted in place, we'll get all the burners in place, and then we'll start assembling the jacket. Now the two pieces, this is the first one. This has a very thick layer of insulation on it. We're kind of trying to enclose the burner chamber here with a good amount of insulation. You can see on the right hand side, on the inside of the boiler, there's already a large block of insulation keeping the heat from the flames from migrating out, through the side of the boiler where we don't want it. So get that panel on, and then there's another panel in the back that will bolt in place, and the jacket itself will bolt to those primarily. So the reason you put a jacket on a boiler is it looks a lot better. It also contains insulation to improve the efficiency of the boiler so that you're not losing as much heat as you would, out the sides and the front of the boiler just from the cast iron radiating heat away. So the more heat you can contain within the boiler itself and keep that heat in the water, the more efficient your boiler will be. So as this moves along, just keep thinking about how every last little bit of improvement on efficiency matters. There's a limit to how efficient you can be on anything like this, and the closer you can get to that, the better off you'll be for fuel costs and operating costs and all that. So here you can see I'm installing the burners. They literally just there's a slot in the back that they fit into, and then they are suspended around the orifices. If you look close, you can just see that there's a gap between the orifices and the opening of the burner, and that's where the air gets sucked in and mixed in the burner tube before it gets lit off inside the boiler. Right now I'm installing the gas valve. The gas will actually enter on the right side of the boiler, come through the gas valve, and then turn down and go back through that manifold bar, that black bar there on the bottom. Now this is one of those times where I ran into something that I didn't expect, and that kind of caused some issues for me, but nothing too major, nothing I couldn't fix, and it was with this piece right here. Now this is a pre-manufactured piece that comes with the boiler, and the reason they send this is because there's a hole in the jacket that the gas pipe has to go through, so they send you the right piece that is the right height so that it matches that hole. Now as you can see, I'm having some trouble getting that fitting on there, and it just wouldn't start. So finally I tried to start investigating, if there's something wrong with the threads. Maybe it was with my fitting. I tried a different fitting, still wouldn't start. And I finally took that piece off and investigated further, and I found out that it was actually egg-shaped. It wasn't round, and that is what was preventing fittings from being able to start. So rather than wait for a new one to arrive, I just went and got some short pieces of pipe and some other fittings just so that I could make something up that matched that height, because it doesn't really have to be particularly that piece. It just has to be enough diameter, the same size, and connect to the gas valve, and make sure that it's the same height so that it matches that hole in the jacket. So managed to get that and get it done. So I did want to talk a little bit here about kind of the challenges of trying to do this stuff in this crazy age of COVID-19 that we're living through right now. There have been some pretty profound supply interruptions for a lot of this stuff. In fact, this boiler, initially when I got the quote, it had something, I think they said a 12-week lead time. Or I'm sorry, it was 10-week lead time to get it from the factory. Now that 10 weeks turned into 6 months because of a lot of factors. The factory couldn't get certain parts actually for this burner tray because their suppliers couldn't manufacture them because they didn't have the labor force to keep up with demand because of the pandemic. And it's been that way for a whole bunch of different jobs that I've done. And one of the things that was a little disappointing when I got this boiler is, like that piece was egg-shaped. I couldn't use it. And that panel that you see right there that has all the holes in it, that's the right-hand panel for the boiler. That actually came, and it was pretty bent and beat up. And I called and checked to see if I could get a new one. But the timing on getting one was unknown. They wouldn't even give me time when it would be here. So I went ahead and made the decision to just sit there with a hammer and some pliers and try and get it back into shape. And I'm pretty happy with it. I mean, you can see it's a little beat up. It's not super evident in this photo, but you'll see it in another video when we do the controls, that it is, it's a little beat up, but it doesn't materially affect the operation of the boiler at all, or safety or anything like that. But rather than sit here and wait for, who knows, possibly another 6 months for the factory to send that piece out, I decided to just press on and keep moving forward. So you can see how those panels have fiberglass insulation on the inside of them, and that brushes up against the side of the cast iron. That keeps the heat inside the boiler as much as possible. Oh, the other thing I didn't want to mention is that part on the back that you can see that I just screwed on there a little bit ago, that is what's called the Draft Diverter. So what it does is it's what connects to the smoke reaching, which you saw in the other video, and it also has that outlet that connects to the flue pipe. Now the bottom of that is actually completely open. It's open to atmosphere. You can stick your hand up in there. It's just an open box. And the reason you do that is so that when you start running a bunch of hot flue gases out that pipe and into the chimney, it will create a draft. It will create a negative pressure as the hot air rises, it'll start sucking air out of the room. So if you don't have a draft diverter like that with an opening to allow fresh air to get into the flue, what'll happen is it'll try and draw all that air through the burner chamber, and that will cause the mixture of fuel and air to change, and you don't want that. You want that to be metered and precise and have that always be exactly what you want. So if you allow air to go into the flue after it has burned and gone through the boiler, then the flue changing temperature and going from cold to hot, increasing your draft, decreasing the pressure, more negative pressure, won't affect your burner as long as you have enough makeup air into the room. So the pressures involved are incredibly small. Draft pressure should be somewhere around negative 0.02 inches of water column. And if you remember, 2.31 feet of water column is 1 psi. So hundredths of an inch of water column is, you call up more pressure than that just by exhaling normally. So trying to keep all of this tuned and metered correctly and running correctly can be kind of subtle. Little tiny things can actually affect this. If you had, say, like an exhaust fan pulling air out of this room, it could potentially really affect those burners. So it's an important consideration to keep in mind that you always have to have enough makeup air coming into the room, and you have to have the gas pressure set exactly right and for it to work correctly. Now here you can see I'm kind of trying to bend. That top piece was a little bent up too in with the package that we got, so just bent that back into shape. Again, none of this is anything that affects the operation or the safety of the boiler in any way, so wasn't too worried about it. It's just an aesthetic thing mostly. So here you can see I had to take that draft diverter off to get the back panel in. It just was fighting me, so I made it easy on myself. It's only 5 screws, so anyways, get that back on, and then get the bushing into the right hand side to bush down the return to 2 inch from 2.5 inch. And something funny happened. You'll see in a sec. Every now and then you just do something stupid, and in this case I was pushing down on a wrench too hard, and I just didn't have the right leverage, and the wrench slipped, and I punched myself with a boiler, as you'll see. Right there, just right on the chin. Didn't feel great, I'll tell you that. But, these things happen. As careful as you can be, things always happen. But I wasn't bleeding, so just kept on going. And here you can see I'm just getting all, I got everything kind of in place and held together with just enough screws to hold it together. So now I'm going through, filling in all the gaps, getting all the rest of the screws in, again trying to kind of straighten that top out a little bit, make it look a little better. And yeah, but once everything was in place, it worked out pretty well. I was pretty happy with it overall, even though stuff came a little beat up. So yeah, I think that's it for this video. And if you have any questions, you can email me at templeaaronboilerreplacement@gmail.com. Hope you guys are having a good day, and I'll see you on the next one.